Welcome to this video. Welcome everybody. We are talking about science for class 5 CBSE natural phenomena water. What is water? On a hot summer day when you are walking on the street on a desert, how much you will long for one drop of water. You will understand the value of water when you have to carry on your head a pot of water from a faraway oasis living in a desert on a hot summer day. Then you will understand the value of the water. Without water, no living being can exist. Because of the absence of water, other planets do not have life forms. Water is one of the natural phenomena, like air, sunlight. Water is a natural element. Water is found on ground as well as in the seas. 71% of the earth is about landmass and water, and 29% is landmass. On the 29% landmass, we have some water, but the 71% oceans is also main source of water. Water in the land is present beneath the earth's surface because the soil's pore spaces. The pore is a hole. Soil pore, or the spaces in the rock formation, the soil, the gravel in between collects the water from the rain. The water is recharged by water cycle. It's also from the discharge from the surface. Naturally, it springs and seeps and can form oases and wetlands. Water either comes out in the form of springs or it seeps into oases and wetlands. Water is dug out by digging deep well. Water on its own gets collected in the pores and spaces and remains on the ground. It is recharged by the water cycle. What you see here is a picture on how the water comes into the soil from the rain and from other places. What we call this is a confined aquifer or unconfined aquifer. It is closed or open, that is confined or unconfined, and then there are beds of solid soil and rock that confines the water in between, and the water is collected there for centuries and millennia. Century is 100 years, millennia is thousands of years. So that is how water happens. When you dig too much of a deep well and then you exhaust the water available there, then the level of the groundwater falls and then people suffer from absence of water. Looking at seawater, this is how the seawater happens. 2-3 things happen. One, the water from the sea, the glaciers melt and the sea comes. The seawater is the source is the not just the rainwater, but the rain that comes through the river into the sea. So this brings the sediments, the soil from the mountains and the plains. So this gets sedimented, this gets added, and so the ocean floor rises and the characteristic of the ocean floor changes. Because of this, the quality of the water there also changes. So one, seawater is salty. Second, the sedimentations are added and that changes the characteristic and properties of the water. So what you see here is how the water comes and what are the qualities of the water on the different layers. The surface ocean is different from the deep ocean, and then there is a sea floor sediments that is happening, and then below that is the earth's crust, and different living beings live in different layers or levels of the seawater. The salinity is normal on the top, and when you go below it is a high salt. And on the top you have oxygen, but when you go down below there is very little oxygen on the water deep in the ocean. So this is one, and this sedimentation is also called the bathtub regime of the oceans. So the solar radiation falls on the surface of the earth, and many times what happens is a sea ice is formed or sea ice is broken. Below that you have the cold fresh halcyon, and then below that you have the warm Atlantic water, and then it generates the tides. This is about the seawater. Coming back to potable water or the water on the land, or fresh water that we use as humans, water is inorganic, transparent, tasteless, odorless, nearly colorless. Water is inorganic, transparent, tasteless, odorless, colorless. Then how do we get a taste when you drink a water? Because of the chemicals in it. That is why when you buy a bottle of water, different water will have different taste because it is either by reverse osmosis or it is called mineral water, etc. When you go to villages and drink water from different wells, in different village and different well, you will have a different taste of the water depending upon the soil in that area. The chemical content of the soil changes the taste of the water. That is why it becomes taste. Water itself in pure form is tasteless. If the atmosphere is clear and when you try to taste the rainwater, it will not have any taste. That is what we try to say when we say pure water is tasteless. The main constant of the Earth's hydrosphere is the water. Hydrosphere is like stratosphere, atmosphere and all. Hydrosphere is the water. The blanket of water on the Earth, it is water. It is a fluid in most of the living organisms. The fluid in most of the, we see, human body is around 70% water. We have to drink 10 to 12 glasses of water. It is because there is too much water in every human being, every plant. It is vital for all forms of life. Water is vital for all forms of life. That is why where there is no water, you will not find a life form in other planets. It provides no calories or organic nutrients. So by just drinking water, it only hydrates the body. It does not provide any calories or organic content. Coming back, what you see here is a person fishing. What do we mean? Water provides us recreation. You can go swimming, you can do fishing, you can do boating, sailing. Yes, you can do that. But the most important use of water is the human consumption. The most important use of water is human consumption. And then, which is drinking, eating or cooking food, washing, bathing, etc. Next important is photosynthesis, because plants need water to make food and we eat the plant food. Or other animals eat the plants and we eat those animals. So we need water for human consumption, so drinking and cooking. We also need water for the plants, the photosynthesis. So agriculture needs water, whether it is rice or wheat or plants or fruits, agriculture needs water. Fishing. Unless you have water, you cannot have fishing. So the water should be good enough for fishes to thrive so that we can have fish as a food. Processing wood to make paper and producing steel from automobiles also consumes a lot of water. That means industrial activity also needs a lot of water. Dyeing to change the cloths, cotton cloth from white to different colors uses a lot of water, and then that water becomes a polluted wastewater. That is again mixed with good water and it creates pollution for people living around the mills, cotton mills or dyeing mills. That is a problem. And then we have water as a mode of transport, the boats, the ships, etc. And then water is used in electricity generation also. Hydroelectricity is generated from river water. Water is used to make up a steam when you use in thermal electricity. So water is having multiple uses for human beings. There are lots of impurities in the water. The impurities in the water can be in the form of dust, dirt or harmful chemicals. It can be microbes. Biological contaminant is a microbe or pathogens like a virus or bacteria. And then we have radiological contaminants, that is the radiological waste. And then there could be suspended solids. So many things may be floating around in water. When you try to get a handful of dirty water from a seashore or from a river, you will find all this. That is because human beings don't adequately take care of keeping the sources of water clean. Now these impurities can be either soluble, that is dissolved form, or insoluble, remain suspended or sediments. Now when you say impurities, we mean anything that adds to water and is not part of water is an impurity. Soluble form is dissolved form, dissolved in water, and we cannot, when you see, you do not find it. Insoluble, it remains suspended as a sediment. Now let us see how we can clean this water. Filtration. What you see on the right hand side top picture is naturally happening. The pebbles, the stones, the soil, the gravel, the rocks, they filter the water naturally, and when it reaches deep below, it seeps into the pores or spaces into a clean water. That is why, howsoever dirty the rainwater may be on the top, when you dig it out from the well, it becomes as a clean water. The second picture that you see is how we do it in a lab, the filtration. What is filtration? Filtering out the impurities. How? Using a filter paper. How? By pouring a solution into a filter paper and collecting the pure liquid, only the solute and not the only the solvent, not the solute, into the beaker. So filtration means to pass through. It separates the solid matter from the fluid in the form of a mixture with the help of a filter or a medium. This is filtration. Filtration is insoluble impurities are removed by passing the impure water through filter paper. Insoluble impurities are removed by passing the impure water through filter paper. That is filtration. So the mixture is allowed to pass through a filter, and by filtration sand comes out and on the filter paper and water is collected in the beaker below. The insoluble impurities are removed by filtration. Let us have a look at sedimentation. What is sedimentation? Sedimentation is a process of multiple steps. First, there will be, suppose there is some muddy water. Then this has insoluble impurities as well as soluble impurities, mud, water, etc. It is left to stand undisturbed for some time. So what you see on the left is a mixture of a lot of things. Suspended water. What you see on the right is all the particles are suspended and only pure water is on the top. After some time, the mud settles down at the bottom and the sediments. This is called sedimentation. And then rainwater can be poured out, called a decantation. Naturally also the sedimentation happens. The water cycle brings the sediments or dirty water, the particles. After some time it settles on the pond or a lake or whatever on the source of this sedimentation gets keeping on, and finally there will be no space left for the water when it gets added up. That is why we say the ponds or the lakes in the villages needs to be periodically desilted. Rivers needs to be periodically desilted so that water can be stored or passed on those aquifers. Aquifer is a place where we have water collected from natural sources for human use later. Sedimentation is to allow particles and suspension to settle out of the fluid in which they are entrained. They are collected. This sedimentation happens because of gravity. Because of the gravity of the earth, the sediments gets collected to the bottom of the container. It is time dependent. It will take time. It will not happen in 1 second. It will take some time. And it is because of gravity. The particles become the sediment and the water treatment is known as a sludge. Now, to make sedimentation faster, what we do is we add alum. Alum is added to fasten. This process is called loading. Adding of alum, a chemical, is called loading to speed up the sedimentation process. How it happens? When alum is added to a muddy water, for example, the alum particles get themselves attached to the particles suspended in the muddy water. So the impurities in the water and the alum particles together get attached to each other. The alum dissolves into the water. It gets attached to these particles and become heavier, and so by more gravity can work on them faster and it gets settled at the bottom because it becomes heavier. So the sedimentation process becomes speeded up because of the addition of alum particles. And finally, after all this, you will not find any alum left there, but the dirt particles and the alum together would have settled down at the bottom of the container, and the top will be the so-called clean water. This is a sedimentation process. These are two methods in which impurities which can be seen by you, insoluble impurities, can be removed. Now there are, after this sedimentation is happening, you have to do a decantation. Either whether you add alum or not, whether you do filtration or not, when the sediments get collected at the bottom, you have to pour the clean water into another vessel. This is called decantation. Separating the mixture by removing a liquid, separating the mixture by removing the liquid to another form and leaving the precipitate behind. The solid is deposited, is left behind, and the clean liquid is poured or collected into another. This is done for two reasons. One, maybe you wanted to collect it only in the liquid part, or maybe you wanted to collect only the sediments part. So this is either to get the liquid free from particulates or to recover the precipitates themselves. So it is poured out without disturbing so that there is no further need for settling down. The alum particles that are attached and make it heavier and settle faster are collected as a sediment. This is decantation. Now soluble impurities. Soluble impurities can be removed, and it is a little difficult than the insoluble ones. You cannot do a simple filtration or a simple sedimentation. The most important method is evaporation. On the picture right, you will see that water particles jump when you are boiling water. So when it is lightly heated, it will be only in the water vapor form. When you heat it further, it becomes boiling. The particles will start jumping. After some time, when you heat, suppose a spoon of water, you will find there is no more water left. And for example, if it was a salty water, salt would be left behind in the pan. How this happens? Water changes from liquid form to gas form. It moves from liquid state back to the water cycle at the atmospheric water vapor level. In the natural thing, not in the pan in kitchen. In the nature, because of the sun's heat, the water in the ponds or the rivers or the lakes or the oceans go back into atmosphere as water vapor. And then they come back as rain. This is a water cycle. So because of the heat, water changes from liquid to gas or vapor. When heated, they leave behind the impurities. When water vapor cools down, it becomes water again. This is called distillation. When water vapor cools down, it becomes water again. This is called instillation. The water cycle that you see here is the water, because of heat, goes up, becomes cloud, and then condenses and falls as a rain. Sometimes it is in the form of a glacier on the snow-capped mountains. It comes back as a rain into the sea. This is how the water cycle in nature happens. And evaporation is a process by which the water becomes water vapor, either by manual heating or by heat of the sun's rays. Now let us look at other forms of removing impurities, dissoluble impurities. Chlorination is another method. Boiling is another method. Chlorination is another. We have seen evaporation or boiling, by which the water goes off, and then comes the chlorination. Chlorination is adding chlorine. When you are drinking a glass of water, you can just add chlorine tablets. When you have a water tank, you will add chlorine powder into that water tank. And then this chlorine tablet or chlorination kills the germs and make the water fit for drinking. But if it is too much chlorine, then it becomes a different taste that you cannot drink. It needs further purification or whatever. But chlorine as a chemical compound, as a gas or a solid, when added to water, kills the germs and makes the water fit for drinking. This process is called chlorination. But normally in households, we use boiling. Boiling is boil water for 10 minutes and all the pathogens, most of them will be killed and it will become clean and fit for drinking. Chlorination that we do in water tank in the whole building or in the water tank for the whole village, there we do the chlorination. These are the two methods of purifying water for drinking. Why? To kill the pathogens or disease causing germs. What is chlorination? It's adding of chlorine. Chlorine, what is the chemical name of chlorine? It is sodium hydrochloride or sodium calcium hypochlorite that we add because it disinfects the pathogens. Now, in a city, if a water supply has to be made, then that water supply will happen in the form of, first they will do the sedimentation, then they have to do the filtration, then they have to do the chlorination. All this they have to do to make a rainwater fit for human consumption. Personally, at home, we have to drink as much as possible boiled water because rapid vaporization of the liquid kills the germs. Boiling is rapid vaporization of the liquid and then you filter. So this kills most of the germs and makes it fit for drinking. Vapor pressure of the liquid is equal to the pressure exerted on the liquid by the surrounding atmosphere. That means what? Air on the top gives a pressure on the surface of the water. When the water is heated, water becomes vapor. This also has a pressure. When both the pressure becomes equal, it is called the boiling point. At that point, water starts boiling. Water becomes bubbles. Now coming into how the water is purified. In this picture you will see the rainwater is collected and then coagulation. It is mixed so that the soluble and insoluble impurities becomes coagulated and then it is left for some time for sedimentation. When the sedimentation is over, it is let through filtration. So whatever can the soil or the gravel is sedimented, this is the pure water that is left behind on the top is let through filtration. After filtering, it comes for disinfection where chlorination or something is done to make it the microbes to be killed in the water and then it is stored in water tanks and supplied. So drinking water treatment, it comes in the form of collection, coagulation, chemical addition for chlorination. Before that you do the sedimentation and filtration. Disinfection is to remove the pathogens. Chemical addition is nothing but adding alum to make the sedimentation faster. Finally, water is distributed to the people. So water is very important. There are multiple sources of water. Rain is the most important source of water. Seawater is not drinkable because it is saline. Water has very many uses. Most importantly, human beings need to drink or make food and then plants need to make for the photosynthesis. Water is also a means of transport. And then sometimes water has impurities, that is something added to the water. They may be soluble or insoluble. Soluble is completely dissolved. Insoluble is floating or hanging around in water, not completely dissolved. It can be removed. The impurities can be removed by filtration, that is adding a filter paper. Sedimentation, allowing it to stand for some time and with the help of gravity. Decantation, pouring the pure water on the top, leaving behind the sediments. Alum is alum loading for making the sedimentation faster. Evaporation is making the water become water vapor by heating it. Distillation happens when the water is allowed to cool. The water vapor is allowed to cool to become pure water again. Boiling is heating water to facilitate evaporation. Chlorination is adding of chlorine for killing the germs. Purification water is a multiple process after which it is distributed to human consumption. Thanks for watching this video on water, natural phenomena, one of the most important elements that makes human life possible on earth.